Journeys of Return and Redemption. Zechariah chapter 10. The room still holds last week's air. Covenant blood, a waterless pit, a king on a colt, prisoners renamed hope. Alex Rivera does not clear that table as if it never happened. He lets the first oracle keep its name, then opens the next page with the weight of work still ahead. Welcome back to Journeys of Return and Redemption. We are still inside the first oracle, the humble king and the broken shepherd. Last time we walked chapter 9, the burden on the northern corridor and the coast, the Lord camping around his house, the humble king who speaks peace, the pit that is not scenery, Judah as bow and Ephraim as arrow. Tonight we take up chapter 10, the positive middle of that oracle, provision, false guidance, a flock tended by God himself, strength given back to both houses, a whistle that gathers, a people taught to walk in his name. He glances down the panel. Dr. Naomi, Rabbi Jonah, Thomas, Sophia, Father Elias, and opens his hands. Three movements I want us to feel, not just list. First, where rain really comes from, and what happens when people take their weather from idols and dreamers. Second, the Lord's anger at shepherds, and what he does with Judah when he claims the flock as his own. Third, whistle, gather, redeem. Egypt and Assyria named, Gilead and Lebanon filling up, a sea of distress crossed, and a people strengthened to walk. Naomi, put us on the ground. When is this spoken and who is listening when verse 1 lands? Naomi's finger finds the first line, but she does not start with the weather alone. We are still in the early Persian period. Judah back from Babylon under imperial permission, temple work either underway or freshly finished depending on how you date the oracle's delivery. But the people are not living in David's glory days. They are a small community under foreign oversight, farming hard soil, watching the calendar for rain, and trying to believe that the God who brought them home still runs the seasons. Spring rain is not poetry for them. It is whether the late showers finish the crop before the heat locks the ground. So when Zechariah says, "Ask the Lord for rain in the time of the spring rain, the Lord who makes the storm clouds, and he will give them showers of rain, vegetation in the field for everyone," he is speaking into kitchens and fields under empire, not into a seminar about positive thinking. Ask the one who actually makes the storm clouds. Thomas nods. Engineer plain. Before the chapter names bad shepherds, it names a good source. Sequence matters. If you start with leadership failure, you can turn the whole book into a personnel problem. Verse 1 says the first problem is theological before it is institutional. Who do you petition for rain? Who do you trust to make weather? The Lord makes storm clouds. Everything after this is people either living under that fact or inventing smaller gods to manage the calendar. Rabbi Jonah's voice stays close to the covenant grain. In our story, rain is never only meteorology. Spring rain is the late gift that finishes the crop, the difference between green fields and hard ground after a dry stretch. The chapter begins by reteaching dependence. Ask him. He makes the clouds. He gives showers. Vegetation for everyone, not a private miracle for the clever but field-wide mercy. Chapter 9 ended with grain and new wine making the young flourish. Chapter 10 opens by telling you who to ask when that flourishing is at risk. Sophia's face softens at the ordinary need. I love that it starts with something a family can understand. Rain, crops, enough. Before we get to armies and empires, God addresses the anxiety that lives in kitchens and fields. Return is not only a parade home. Sometimes return is learning again who feeds you. Alex steers. Hold the ask. Now verse 2. Why that ask is contested. Jonah, idols and dreams. Then Naomi, what it does to people on the ground. Jonah does not flinch from the hard nouns. For the teraphim speak iniquity, and the diviners see a lie and tell false dreams. They comfort in vain. Therefore the people wander like sheep. They are afflicted because there is no shepherd. Household gods with answers. Professionals of the unseen who see a lie. Dreams that feel warm and leave you empty. Comfort that does not hold. The result is not merely bad theology in a book. The result is a people walking without a path, sheep language, scattered and pressed, and the diagnosis is lack of a shepherd. Naomi sets the verse in the same Persian period street. This is a community that has already learned how expensive false hope can be. They came home under Cyrus's decree, but home is not automatic safety. Household gods and freelance diviners were the old Mediterranean toolkit for anxiety. Answers you could buy when the rain was late and the governor's hand was heavy. Zechariah says those voices speak iniquity and see a lie. The people wander and are afflicted. The text will not let us romanticize spiritual seeking when the seeking is aimed at teraphim and lying vision. And no shepherd is not a compliment about independence. It is a wound in a province that needs faithful leadership and keeps getting vanity instead. Thomas's jaw sets. If I run a team on false metrics, people thrash. If a household runs on comforting lies, children learn the wrong map of the world. Verse 2 is structural, bad inputs, vain comfort. Output, wandering sheep and pressure on the flock. Chapter 9 gave us a true king and a pit opened by covenant blood. Chapter 10 shows what still happens when the people take their guidance from idols and dream merchants instead of the Lord who makes rain. Father Elias leans in. Scripture supports Scripture here. Ezekiel 34 sings the same grief in another key. Shepherds who feed themselves, flocks scattered on every high hill, the Lord against the shepherds, the Lord himself searching and gathering. God has said this before. When under-shepherds fail, he does not shrug. He claims the flock. Zechariah 10 is about to do that, and then press further into strength language Ezekiel's pasture scene does not emphasize the same way. Keep listening for war steeds, not only green grass. Alex points to verse 3. Naomi, anger and care in the same breath, and keep us in the period. Thomas, the royal steed, don't split them. Naomi holds both edges. My anger burns against the shepherds, and I will punish the leaders, the male goats, for the Lord of hosts has visited his flock, the house of Judah, and will make them like his majestic horse in battle. She looks up. In a small post-exilic community, shepherds and he-goats are not abstract. They are the men who should have guarded the flock and instead shoved for advantage. Local power under empire, religious and civil pressure on a people already thin. The Lord's anger burns against that. He will deal with those leaders, and in the same breath, visitation, care. The house of Judah is not abandoned to the failure of its handlers. The Lord of hosts has attended to them. Then the image shifts hard. Not only I will pasture you, I will make you like my royal warhorse. Thomas almost smiles at the engineering of the metaphor. That is not therapy language. That is cavalry language. A majestic horse in battle is trained, directed, powerful under a rider's hand. God does not merely soothe a traumatized flock and leave them decorative. He remakes them into something that moves under his command with force. Last episode we said rescue precedes weaponization. Out of the pit, then war bow and arrow. Here the flock itself becomes the steed. Strength is gift and assignment. Sophia hears the cost and the dignity together. For people who have been walked over by bad guidance, "You will be my warhorse" can sound like more pressure, but look who does the making. The Lord visits, the Lord makes. This is not try harder after spiritual abuse. This is God reclaiming a people and giving them a different kind of strength than the diviners ever sold. Jonah's hand rests on the next verse as if on a hinge pin. From him will come the cornerstone, from him the tent peg, from him the battle bow, from him every ruler together. The him sits on Judah in the flow of the text. The flock God has just claimed and remade. Out of that people come the load-bearing pieces of a house in a war. Cornerstone that sets the lines, tent peg that holds the dwelling, battle bow that looses the arrow, and leadership that is not a scatter of freelancers but every ruler together. Elias does not force a full messianic sermon, but he will not pretend the language is empty. Chapter 9 already set a king on a donkey, righteous, saving, humble. Chapter 10's from him language gathers the instruments of stability and conflict under God's provision from his people. Cornerstone and peg are building and dwelling. Battle bow is under the Lord's campaign. Rulers together are order, not chaos. True leadership and true kingship answer the shepherds who lied and the goats who crushed. The pressure runs toward the one who can hold these offices without the flock inventing another set of teraphim to fill the gap. Alex turns a palm. Verses 5 through 7, mighty men, two houses, gladness, Sophia and Thomas. Thomas takes the fight line. They will be like mighty men, trampling the enemy in the mire of the streets in battle. They will fight, for the Lord is with them, and the riders on horses will be put to shame. Again, agency under presence. They trample, they fight. Why? Because the Lord is with them. Cavalry pride gets embarrassed. This is not Israel discovering self-esteem. This is God with them turning a shepherdless scatter into a force that muddies the roads of the arrogant. Sophia takes the mercy line that follows, without softening the steel. I will strengthen the house of Judah and save the house of Joseph. I will bring them back because I have compassion on them, and they will be as though I had not rejected them. For I am the Lord their God, and I will answer them. Then Ephraim will be like a mighty man, and their hearts will be glad as with wine. Their children will see it and be glad. Their hearts will rejoice in the Lord. Her eyes shine, then steady. Judah and Joseph, both houses, not a half-reunion slogan. Strengthen one, save the other, restore under compassion, as though I had not rejected them. That is a sentence for anyone who thinks exile was the last word God knew how to speak. And the gladness is not only private adult relief. Children see it. Children rejoice. Return that never reaches the next generation is still incomplete in this picture. Hearts glad as with wine, honest joy, not vain comfort from verse 2. Jonah adds the covenant name that carries the promise. I am the Lord their God, and I will answer them. The same God who makes storm clouds answers. Rain was the first ask. Now the relationship is stated outright. Answer is personal. Restoration is not a weather accident. It is the Lord keeping his people as his people. Naomi maps the geography that comes next, careful and clear. I will whistle for them and gather them, for I have redeemed them, and they will be as numerous as they were before. Though I scatter them among the peoples, in distant places they will remember me. They and their children will live and return. I will bring them back from the land of Egypt and gather them from Assyria. I will bring them to the land of Gilead and Lebanon until no more room is found for them. She lets the place names sit in their history. For a people who still feel the long shadow of Assyria's deportations and Egypt's old bondage, and who live now under Persia's quieter hand, those names are not travel brochure. Whistle, a shepherd's signal, sharp and personal. Gather because redeemed, not because they negotiated well. Numerous as before, reversal of depletion after generations of thinning. Scattered, yet remembering in far countries. Children again in the return sentence. Gilead and Lebanon, north and east space filling until capacity breaks. Hope with edges, land, memory, numbers, empires. Elias sets Scripture beside Scripture again. Ezekiel's shepherd chapter promises search and rescue and good pasture. Zechariah's whistle is kin to that search, the same God, the same claim on the flock, and here the gathered people are not only secured on hillsides, they have already been cast as steed and mighty ones. Redemption gathers a people God intends to strengthen for walking and, when he wills, for battle under his hand. Pasture and power are not enemies in this chapter, they are sequential gifts from the same Lord. Alex slows the room. Verse 11 is easy to skim because it sounds like another war poem. Do not skim. Jonah, sea of distress. Naomi, Nile, Assyria, Egypt. What is God doing to the old powers while he brings his people through? Jonah's tone deepens. He will pass through the sea of distress and strike the waves of the sea, so that all the depths of the Nile will dry up. The pride of Assyria will be brought down, and the scepter of Egypt will depart. Sea of distress, not tourism, not a casual ford. Passage through anguish under God's striking hand. Nile depths drying. The life system of Egypt humbled the way the Exodus already taught Israel to recognize. Assyria's pride lowered. Egypt's scepter removed. The empires that scattered and enslaved do not get to keep their theater props when the Lord gathers. Thomas hears logistics and theology at once. If you are bringing a people home from Egypt and Assyria, you have to deal with Egypt and Assyria. Verse 11 is not a random lightning bolt for atmosphere. It is path clearing. Pride and scepter are the things empires trust the way Tyre trusted silver. God strikes waves, dries depths, drops pride, removes the rod of rule. Return is not sneaking home while the old masters still hold the whip unchallenged. Return includes God's public handling of the powers that said they owned the flock. Sophia's voice is almost a whisper, then firm. Sea of distress also names what it feels like from inside the water. Some of our people are not in Egypt geographically, but they know distress that has depth. The promise is not that there is no sea. The promise is that he passes through it and strikes the waves. Children who saw gladness in verse 7 need parents who believe verse 11, that distress is real and not final. Alex turns to the last verse, like a benediction that still has spine. I will strengthen them in the Lord, and in his name they will walk, declares the Lord. Elias, Christ thread. Sophia, the walk. Jonah, the name. Elias speaks with pastoral weight. Strengthen in the Lord, not in the diviners, not in the teraphim, not in the vain comfort, not even in nostalgia for numbers as they once were. Strength is located in him, and walking in his name is public allegiance. Name is reputation, authority, character, claim. A people who walk in his name have stopped auditioning lesser shepherds for the job only God can hold. Chapter 9 gave us the king who comes humble. Chapter 10 gives us the people that king claims, strengthens, gathers, and teaches to walk. Redemption here is rain asked of the right God, false comfort unmasked, bad shepherds opposed, a flock made into the Lord's own steed, both houses restored under compassion, a whistle across the nations, empires humbled, and a people strong enough to walk in his name. Sophia nods once. Walking is daily. Not only the whistle moment of being gathered, but the miles after. Hearts glad, children seeing, names remembered in far countries, then feet on a road that belongs to him. If all we wanted was a rescue story that ends at the border, we would stop at gather. The chapter ends at walk. Jonah seals the covenant edge. In his name, the same Lord who answers, who redeems, who whistles, who strikes the sea of distress. Walking in that name is how scattered memory becomes shared life again. Ask him for rain. Refuse the dream merchants. Receive his visitation. Become what he makes you. Come when he whistles. Pass through distress under his hand. Then walk, strengthened in the Lord. Alex faces the listener beyond the glass. Leave with chapter 10 held inside the humble king and the broken shepherd. Ask the Lord for the spring rain. He makes the storm clouds and gives showers so fields live. Do not take your weather from teraphim and lying diviners. Vain comfort makes sheep wander and leaves them afflicted without a shepherd. The Lord's anger burns against those shepherds, and he will deal with the goats who crush. Yet he visits his flock, the house of Judah, and makes them like his majestic horse in battle. From that visited people, cornerstone, tent peg, battle bow, rulers together, mighty ones who trample because the Lord is with them, riders shamed, Judah strengthened, Joseph saved, restored under compassion as though rejection were not the last word, answered by their God. Ephraim glad as with wine, children seeing and rejoicing. A whistle of redemption, gathering, numbers renewed, memory in far lands, return with the children. Out of Egypt, out of Assyria, into Gilead and Lebanon until there is no room. Through the sea of distress, waves struck, Nile depths dried, Assyria's pride down, Egypt's scepter gone. And the last gift, strength in the Lord, and a walk in his name. Return is learning again who sends rain. Redemption is being gathered by a whistle you did not invent. Freed from empires that do not get the final pride, and taught to walk, not as orphans of bad shepherds, but as a people the Lord of hosts has visited and made his own. He leans toward the mic. I'm Alex Rivera, and this has been Journeys of Return and Redemption.